Jane Grey, known as the Nettle Lady, is a visionary, an artist, weaver and founder of the Nettle Revolution. What if the weed stinging your ankles on a country walk could clove your back, heal your gut and change your perspective on ageing, grief and the planet? Her work with nettles brought her national recognition, including a Theopathetus Small Business Sunday Award. But it's her gentle approach to healing, creativity and sustainability that really stands out. This conversation will take us from grief to growth, sting to strength, and show how nature can shape us if we let it. Hi, I'm Curly Steve, and we're searching for a greener room. Hi Jane, welcome to the show.
Hi Curly.
Nice to see you. So thank you so much for coming in. Let's rewind. Let's start at the very beginning. Tell me a little bit about your, where did you come from? What was your journey?
Oh my goodness. Curly, thanks for having me. This is just such a privilege and I'm really excited to be here. I started 66 years ago actually in Brighton and my parents were about 20 when they had me, and my father was a little bit concerned at the time. He was a sign writer, so he took us all to Manchester to make some money, and that's where my life began. And I grew up in Manchester, have a little bit of a northern twang in my accent, and then eventually my father, having made some money, wanted to live back by the sea, but didn't go back to Brighton. He came to Cornwall, and by then I was married and I had 4 children. And I had a fabulous time being a mother, stay-at-home mother. And initially we lived in St Ives, top of St Ives, on a farm that my father bought. And I lived in a caravan and surrounded by fields, and we had so many different animals, and we grew our own veg. And I think that's my first immersion into nature, was in St Ives on the farm with the wind swirling around and all those animals, and my kids loved it.
What an amazing place to grow up. I mean, being in Cornwall as a youth is such a pleasure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, such a natural place to be. Awesome. So tell what happened from there.
Well, living in a caravan wasn't my ideal situation, because literally the caravan was put in a field and it had no facilities, no electricity. I had no washing machine. We didn't have running water. We didn't have lights. We had those mantles that you lit, and gas, the little gas lamps. It was all very, very simple, which my husband loved.
Okay.
But for me, with 2 children, initially in the second one was in nappies, and I had territorial in nappies. I was struggling without a washing machine. So I did start saying, please, can we get a house? Which wasn't very viable at the time, because he was still trying to build a business to enable us to have the funds to buy a house. Eventually that happened and we moved to Hale, where there was a bit more space for us and more affordable at the time.
Into a house?
Into a house.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, my children went to school in Hale, and I had 2 more children. And I eventually then moved to Upton Towers, nearer to the beach, and I can walk every day straight out to the beach, and it's just fabulous.
A beautiful area there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So forward on a few years there, and you decided to, tell me the story of what got you to university.
So a few life-changing situations occurred. One of them was me deciding I had a voice, I wanted one. And having been a stay-at-home mother for, up till 2000, I don't know how old I was then, I'm trying to work it out. I had been, well, a mum.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fabulous job. I, recommend it to everybody. But I didn't go to work at that time. I wanted to give my children my full attention. And also my background history of the way I was raised was a kind of different kind of life that I found or felt I needed to move on from. So it was a religious background, and I just felt I needed to grow, and living the life that I was raised in and I'd married into, I couldn't do that. It just wasn't it wasn't sitting right with me. I started feeling depressed in that situation, and I didn't want to live a life where I was stuck. So unfortunately, I decided to leave that religion, which meant I got divorced. And that kind of changed a lot of things, especially for the children. It was a period of deep reflection. And I went to work for Barclays Bank. I did a period working for Barclays Bank. I didn't know I was dyslexic then. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't lose money.
So this was, was this after divorce or before divorce that you started working with the bank?
So
okay.
I got divorced around 2000, and then about 2003 I was working for Barclays
And
Bank.
this is when you started feeling that you found your voice?
This is me looking for my voice.
Okay.
I was searching for my voice.
So we won't dwell on it, but the religion was one that the female side is kept relatively quiet.
The female side is kept in its place.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, my relationship with my husband was he would provide for the meals, and I would make the meals, and I used to cook wholesomely, so I would be baking and making cake and putting lovely meals on the table every day. And I would be looking after him, and he would just go to work. Well, not just, but he would go to work, and that was how it was.
So where was your creativity at this stage? Were you able
I was a knitter.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I made things constantly. I was a huge knitter.
Clothes and stuff? Or?
Yeah, I knitted everything. I would knit the children's school uniforms. I would knit my clothes. I would make dresses for myself. I didn't attempt to make boys' trousers because they put the knees out too quickly, and I would spend ages making them, and they would wreck them, so that didn't happen. At that time, money was quite hard. Money was quite hard to come by. And my husband was a window cleaner, so I would get up at 5 a.m. on Sunday mornings and be down the car boots looking for clothing for my children, and we used to eke out the pennies that way.
Yeah.
And I lived a frugal life on the farm, and on the farm without the facilities to have a washing machine, hand washing in literally old baths that were put there in the field for the animals to drink from. I would be there washing my hair sometimes,
right.
or washing out the nappies. And
that's tough with the old terry nappies, isn't it?
Very tough, especially in the winter.
Yeah.
I did have enough of it. I did get to the point of breaking point, and I said to my husband, we need a house.
Yeah. So fast forward back to you got divorced, you started finding
I needed
Jane.
to earn money.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who she was at the time, this lady. So I was just taking jobs that I could apply for, and that was local. So I first of all worked for Barclays, but all the time at that time, because I started this new path of looking for who I was, I started attending evening courses at left Penwith College and I learnt to become a masseuse. I did teacher training whilst I was working, and after the Barclays Bank, that didn't really work out, having found out I was dyslexic. They put me through, the programme, so it was official. I went into care work, so I worked for a number of companies, but Mencap was the main one. And obviously I empathise with people. I'm a people person. I love working with people. But I knew I didn't want to stay as a carer. And at that time, Mencap was going through a difficult period in the department I was working, and it made me quite ill. So I ended up feeling some paralysis down my left side, and I was having blurred vision and headaches, and went to the doctors, and they said I had a tumour on my brain, just under the brain. And a dear friend at that time said to me, look, don't go back to Mencap when you come through this operation. Let's find you an art gallery that you've always wanted. So he was very kindly encouraging me, because obviously I was quite frightened. A tumour on the brain, you start thinking all sorts. And also they did mention the C word. So they didn't know what it was until the day that they opened things up and had a look. Fortunately, all went well. And it was keyhole surgery up through my nose. And after that, Howard did keep his promise. And while I was recuperating from and having some time off work to recover from the bleed that was going on after the operation, we went to St Ives and we looked around and we found a beautiful venue for me to have as a gallery. And I didn't really know what I was going to be doing in this place, but I was already making textile pictures from pieces of fabric that would have ended up in landfill. So I was already starting to look at sustainability and how I might promote it. And in 2008, my first grandchild was born. So that was quite significant, because I felt I needed to start leading the way and setting an example in this field of sustainability.
Excellent. So can you tell us who Howard is?
Howard was a lovely gentleman who was reaching retirement, and he was a lecturer at Hallam University, and he moved to Cornwall to retire. He was working on various projects in Hale. One of them was Save Our Sands, and he worked for as a volunteer for different departments, and that's where I met him.
And you became great friends?
We became friends. We started going to the Minack Theatre for picnics and watching shows and just hanging out. And he said to me that he was looking forward to his pension, and he told me how much he'd accumulated, and it was a substantial amount. And he joked with me saying, well, if you married me and anything ever happened to me, you'd inherit my pension, because the way it works, pensions die with the person if they're single. So I just giggled. And we set up this lovely business in St Ives, and he would sit in the gallery and sell my work, and I would be at home making it.
Amazing.
So at that time, chickens came into my life.
Okay.
So chickens was my first point of making. They inspired me to create these pictures of chickens. And the first two chickens that came into my life were because on an estate near where I was living, people had moved and left these chickens in the back garden. And my daughter knew I was quite keen on having chickens, and and my daughter's friend had said, tell your mum that these chickens will pass away because there's nobody caring for them.
They
so
needed rescuing.
go rescue them. And those chickens rescued me right back.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, they did. They were so, well, after we settled them into their new home, I quickly had to have a home built for them. They had the free range of my garden. They became so humorous. They became so loving. They were so funny. They'd be hopping around chasing flies and doing all sorts of funny little antics and, you know, dusting themselves. Chickens love to be clean, and they created a little hollow in my lawn, but, you know, I let them keep it. And they would be dusting their feathers. And so my research started around what do chickens need, and, you know, it led me into the area which became very sad, which was how chickens are kept for industrial purposes. So I went down that rabbit hole quite deeply, and I became aware of the adaptations or modifying of chickens in that very early embryonic stage, or before that even, how they create chickens to put on more flesh for meat, and how these poor chickens grow very rapidly, putting on the meat, and then they can't hold their weight, and then they fall over in the barns and they get ulcerated bodies, and other chickens peck them because they become vulnerable. And all these kind of things started affecting me, and I was getting rather sad about what I was seeing. And so my chickens became even more relevant, because I wanted to get a message out to the public that chickens are sentient beings. They have feelings. They know their GPS position on the planet. They're intelligent. They have a hierarchy. And so by getting that message out, I wanted people to think, if they're going to eat chicken and enjoy it, please give thanks for the life of that chicken that produced it. Don't just go down to those big places that produce a lot of chicken and sell it cheaply, and enjoy that quick fast food without appreciating the life and maybe some trauma that chicken had to go through to produce that meat for you. Plus the way they get the chickens producing eggs, it was cruel back in the day, confining them to small cages.
I think it still is now to an extent, isn't it? It's, yeah.
They try to change legislation. There's periods of my time when I was doing all this work that I used to keep an eye on all that.
So, moving on to nettles.
Yes.
You've made us a lovely cup
let's have some
of nettle tea today.
Yeah, enjoy.
And it's nettles, mint.
So I love nettles as nettles is, but when I make my cups of tea to encourage other people to start drinking nettles, I suggest putting a little bit of mint in, because people are familiar with mint. So it's something they recognise. But at the back, the undertone of the mint is the nettles, with its huge benefits.
And so before we go any further, that is super fresh. It's tasty. It's a really nice cup of tea. I've never had nettle tea before.
Oh, wonderful!
So that's really special. What about the tea, nettle tea that you can buy sort of off the shelf? Obviously, it's not as fresh, but is that still?
Yeah. So
still valid?
Clipper do a very nice organic nettle tea in a tea bag. I recommend having nettles whichever way you can choose to have it. So obviously in some places where nettles are not growing freely, you can't just go and pick them. City areas, you know, if you can purchase nettle, dry nettle, you can buy it in loose, like you would buy loose tea. You can buy dried nettle. You can buy it in a tea bag form. But best of all is going out picking it yourself. And, you know, it immerses you in the nature, and you can learn so much by just looking where the nettles is growing.
So let's go to where your nettle journey came from, because this is fascinating. You went to university at the age of
late 50s.
Late 50s, and you went to Falmouth University.
I did.
And let's go with that journey.
Okay, so just picking up from the chickens. So I was creating all this wonderful work. I thought it was wonderful, but it must have been because it was selling. So a lady in Birmingham, actually, she filled her whole solicitor's office with all my work. She invited me to go there. It was literally walls like this, just full of my work. She would purchase it.
What was this? This was artwork?
This was all the sustainable textiles. I would stitch the pictures of chickens. I would have a sewing machine, and because my eyes are not brilliant, I would do a zigzag stitch rather than a running stitch. So these pictures became very lively, very flamboyant, and these chickens used to get up to all sorts. I would create their legs, and you know, they would be doing all sorts, and they became pictures with telling stories within the pictures. And at that point of having a couple of years of success with the chickens, my friend passed away.
This your friend Howard?
Yeah, my friend Howard.
Right.
It was very unexpected, and he hadn't even drawn his first pension. And it was tragic, and it just took the wind right out of my sails. Yeah. My business was gone, Howard was gone, and I was lost again. Mm-hmm. I was just picking up at that point. This was 2015, so I'd had 15 years of creating Jane and getting this funky, fun, lively person going. You know, I was just getting somewhere, and looking to the future to have some financial stability when we no longer have Howard. And I just was taken aback so abruptly that the grief and the shock, I just didn't know what to do with myself. And so obviously I didn't want to go back to where I had been with working for somebody else, because I was now entrepreneurial, you know. I was keen to create. Also at that time I did get a patent under my belt. I created something else, but that's another story. So I was busy working on that project. And I had met somebody on a catwalk. We were doing a charitable fashion evening to raise money. I can't remember the cause, sorry, but it was down at the Queen's Hotel in Penzance. And I was paired up with a lady that I didn't know. And our nerves were a little bit, you know, all over the place that evening. They'd put a raised runway, or what do you call it, you know, for us to walk.
The catwalk.
The catwalk.
Yeah,
it was raised, and I could see all these people kind of looking up, you know, to where we'd be walking. It was a bit nerve-wracking. Yeah. So
you were modelling, were you?
I was modelling clothes.
Okay, yeah.
So for a shop, it was called McKay's in Penzance at the time. I think they've gone from Penzance now. So I was paired up with a lady called Anne. And Anne was at university, and she was a little bit older than me. So when she told me she was a student, I was like, a student at your age? Wow, how did you become a student? Sure, you just phoned them up.
Yeah.
So that was it, really. So we had our evening, and I said, I'd really like to talk to you some more about your experience at Falmouth University. She did journalism. So I met up with her for a coffee some days later. This was probably springtime, and obviously with university looming for September, I was keen to go if I could. And I'd had a quick look online at the courses, and I thought, well, when people came into my gallery and said to me, oh, these pictures are amazing, where did you do your design art degree? I would always sort of say, well, I don't have a degree. And there was just something about my confidence that got knocked a little. I don't know why.
Imposter syndrome.
Well, it was really. Yeah. So at that point, I thought, this is an opportunity to underpin all that I've been doing with a degree. And I met Anne, and she said, oh, I'll help you, let's have a look online and we'll get the phone number of Falmouth Uni. And she was keen for me to go. So she was leaving before I started, so I never actually got to see her there. But I applied, I got in, and the rest is history. I finished in lockdown, though. That was a bit of a bummer, because at the end of your 3 years, you have a graduation celebration, an exhibition of your work, which for me didn't happen.
Okay. So just while you were at university, tell me the story of how you found nettles.
So, yes, that's where it all began.
That's where it all began.
Yeah.
That's where the Nettle Revolution began.
It did. I didn't call it that till after uni, when I decided I needed a website. So, yeah, a bit of brainstorming for Nettle Revolution. But at university, I studied textile design. And you had 3 options. You could print, embroider, or weave. And I went to university wanting to become a weaver, because whilst I was working on getting a prototype and a patent for a vehicle to get my grandchildren to the beach over the sand dunes, which wasn't a pushchair with little wheels, this was a mono vehicle, I had to go to meet people. I had meetings with Oxford Innovation, and they enabled me. They backed me with some funding, and they enabled me to get a prototype made. It was made in wood. It's in my back garden still, all these years later. And I had to walk through the weave department. Isn't it funny, life? So I had to walk through the weave department to get to this guy's office to talk about what the prototype was going to look like, how much it was going to cost, how long it would take, and all these kind of things. And I would see out of hours, probably during the holidays, all these looms stood in rows like soldiers. It was amazing. And I thought, do you know what?
Weaving looms?
Weaving looms.
Right, okay.
Traditional looms.
Yeah.
And I thought, I would love to know how to operate one of those machines. They're made of wood. They look so natural. This is history. This is how people made our cloth. And it was all churning around in my head. So getting an opportunity to go to university meant that I was now going to be able to learn how to operate one of these machines. And it was just a dream come true. It was just as simple as that. It was magic.
So you learned how to use the machine, and then they said to you, you've got to choose a material or a fibre to use.
Well, that's how it works. So all our clothing is a fabric, and back in the day, it would be natural fabric, because that's what we would grow. And so that was what was used. It's unfortunate that plastic came onto the scene, and years down the line we've got polyester and various other artificial fabrics, which I wanted to get away from, because now I'm thinking sustainably. I'm looking for a greener room. I want everybody to know the things that I was learning. So I started looking at natural fibres, started my research. I came across flax and cotton and linen, silk, and wool, and eventually nettles. For the people who are vegan and, like me, I care about animals deeply. I didn't want to touch silk, because they actually use the cocoon of the silkworm, and they plunge it into boiling water to process the silk, and the little silkworm inside gets boiled alive, and it's not a nice process, so I didn't want to go that route. So a few of my colleagues at the time were researching flax. So I decided I'd do something different, and I came across nettles. I had no knowledge on anything about the fibre of nettles, but once I started digging a little, I could see that there was a big story to be had. So I went that way, that route. And it was amazing. It opened up a whole new world. Who would have believed it? But once I started researching nettles, I came across Nettles for Textiles, which is a Facebook group, a rapidly growing Facebook page now, run by a few people. But Alan Brown was on there, and Gillian Eden. I have her book here somewhere. I got hold of Alan Brown. I contacted him and said that I was writing a dissertation all about nettle fibre, and could I ask him a few questions to include in the dissertation. So we kind of grew a friendship from there. And at that time, I was just loving all the history of the nettles. So I have a book here called A Natural History of Nettles. Lots of information in that yellow book here that I was able to use in my dissertation. And I ended up kind of going online using the university's search engines and finding different books. And whilst I am doing all this, Alan Brown, not that I knew directly at that time, was going through a very tragic time of his wife becoming sick with cancer. And he was trying to cope with all this, going for long walks with his lovely dog Bonnie into Brighton woods. It's coincidence that he was living in Brighton, and that's where I'm from, so it was a lovely connection. And he was looking at the nettles, wondering about a story that he had in his head, Hans Christian Andersen, about some swans. The swans had been the brothers of a young woman, but they'd had a spell cast upon them and they'd become swans, and this young woman wanted her brothers back. So she had to seek the wicked person who'd cast the spell, and the person said, this is the story in Hans Christian Andersen, that if she wanted her brothers back, she would have to go into a graveyard and weave nettle jackets for them. And that interest in Alan Brown's head was, well, I wonder how you can do that. You know, how is this a true story? What's this all about? He then spent a lot of time gathering nettles when the stems are about 5 or 6 foot long, and returning home with them, and he started teaching himself how to get the fibre out. So while he's teaching himself to do this, he has a friend called Dylan, and he says to Dylan, on the Facebook page I've been talking about creating these fibres and people are showing interest, so could you do a little bit of filming, you know, perhaps just catch me, you know, breaking them, and so I can show people how they might have a go. So Dylan starts making small films of him doing that. And then the process, when you're breaking open your nettle fibre, you get your lengths of fibres out, but then you have to process those. You have to ply those fibres to make them stronger.
So first you get a single fibre, and then you have to ply it into like a string.
So, you know, if I can easily pull out one of my hairs. Yeah. You know, I can pull that out. But then if I get a little bundle. Yeah. You know,
it's almost impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
so you're looking at strength there, are you?
You're looking at strength. Yeah. So it's called plying. So Alan had to learn how to spin. And then he had to learn how to take the yarn he'd created to make a fabric, because during this process he thought, I wonder how I can make a cloth, you know. And he's also doing the research, looking at ancestral fabrics So I was very curious about all this. And at that point, over a number of years of me watching his progress and him watching my progress, I discovered that they'd created quite a lot of information, filmed it, and decided they could probably put a small film together about the whole process. And in the meantime, his wife did pass away. So in the story, it's about grief, it's about the love of the land, it's about historical relevance to the history of the land, it's about how our ancestors used to create cloth from our land, and it's all about where we will end up eventually. It's about how fragile our life is, how strong we can make it while we're here, but then how fragile it can become, will become, and how then compostable, the things that we make from nettles, my nettle scarves, the cloth that I make, I can lay that in my garden, and over a period of time it will just decompose back and become soil. The creatures in the soil, the bacterial elements and insects will eat it. And
so it's not going to sit there like plastic for 100 years
or
more.
So the whole story for me, the background story, is promote natural materials so that we're saving our planet from these plastics. And now I have 8 grandchildren. My story has I've become more determined to get this story across. And some of the grandchildren are too young to understand what I'm doing, but there'll come a day when they'll think, oh, that's why Grandma was weaving, and that's why she had those strange-looking scarves wrapped around her neck.
They'll take this forward as well, won't they?
Hopefully.
Potentially.
Hopefully, I will have imparted knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
And history, and even if they don't take it forward, the legacy that I leave, that I hope to leave in the work that I'm doing, will sustain some future.
So you graduated university, you've found nettles, you've met several people on your journey of researching nettles, and you've created, is this when you've created the Nettle Revolution? So
yes, having left uni, had a studio built to house all my looms that I'd acquired. So my son-in-law built the studio during lockdown because he was a builder, couldn't work, so that was fortuitous in that respect. So I have a lovely studio. I wanted to run workshops on how to weave and talk about nettles, but nobody in Cornwall feels basically they didn't want to pay me to teach them. It was quite hard to earn money showing people the skills of setting up a loom and weaving. So I was looking for other opportunities to earn a living. So I thought I need a website, and during that period, one interesting thing that happened whilst I was still at university, on my graduation day, I was given this book, and it's a book that was just being handed out to all graduates, and I thought, it looks like a really interesting book, and actually I'm gifting you this book.
Wow.
It's from
Creative Uprising by George Harwick.
Yep, so George Hardwick.
Thank you.
Yeah, at that time I thought he was in Glastonbury because there's lots of references of him being sound engineer at Glastonbury music festivals and things like that. And there's a reference in there to Ed Sheeran because George was working with Ed, and Ed was quite young and he was getting under George's feet while George was putting out all the, sound equipment and everything. And anyway, I read the book and it's got just some great information in there. And I wanted to thank George because it moved me, this book. It taught me, there's a quote in there, it taught me something very powerful. It said, there's a quote in there that says that let nature shape you into a force of nature. And I thought, well, that's exactly what's happening to me. You know, I am becoming a force of nature.
Can I just stop you there? Let me just hear that slowly. Let
the force of
nature
shape you into a force of nature.
Yeah, that's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there. Carry on.
So I really resonated with that phrase. And the name of the gentleman is in that book. It's McAllister. I've forgotten his name exactly.
That's okay. We'll have a look at that later.
Yeah. But I said to George, would he mind me pinching that quote? And he said, I'm sure he wouldn't. So at that time, so I wanted to thank George for this great publication. And I went on LinkedIn to look for him. And I sent him a private message to say, I've read your book, it's amazing. And next thing I know, he's phoning me and said, let's meet.
Amazing.
And he happened to be at the launch pad at Falmouth at the time. So he was on my doorstep, I couldn't believe it. And he'd teamed up with Mike Turner, and they were setting up a business called A Greater Life for people over 50. So that there is this period, or this misconception really, that we get to a retirement age and we're done.
Yeah.
And I knew
You're only just getting started.
Well, exactly. I knew that I was just getting to the point where I was building something. So there was no way I would be wanting to retire. And Mike Turner is obviously a similar age, and he is just building a new business, so he's not going to be wanting to retire.
So this is how the Nettle Revolution was born.
Yeah, so I got together with these guys to find out what they were doing, and being over 50, they decided that they could interview me in various ways. I could help them by giving feedback, and so that they would know how they could take their business forward, which would appeal to people over the age of 50. And we formed a little founding group, and we would meet every Sunday on Zoom, and there was a few of us by now, and we would all brainstorm their new business, which was in alignment with what I was doing now, because I wanted to grow Nettle Revolution. So they helped me by creating a website for me and brainstorming names. You know, I was coming up with all sorts of nettle phrases with nettles in it. Anyway, we settled for Nettle Revolution, and on the 3rd of January, just a few years ago, the website was born, the name was bought and born, and I became Nettle Revolution. I'm loving it.
Brilliant. So tell me, what does Nettle Revolution look like? What does it do?
Well, I take the sting out of nettles.
I love that.
That's what I do.
And that's a metaphor for life, right?
So
you've taken the sting out of your life.
So let me show you.
And you've taken the sting out of your life and used something that would normally sting you for something so valuable and and creative, etc., etc.
Exactly. So there's usually two sides to things, isn't there?
Yeah.
An upside and a downside, a bad side and a good side, a dark side and a light side. And that's how I see the nettles. So the nettles are magical. They really, really are magical. If anybody can watch the Nettle film, the Nettle dress film, they will appreciate the magic behind nettles, because in that film it's captured perfectly. So I, in my research, was discovering the magic of nettles. They are mystical. They are strong, resilient, powerful, energetic, lively, nutritionally rich, They're abundant in fibre, they're abundant in producing life for creatures that need a habitat. There's just so much. I could probably spend hours just talking about the nettle. So I like to think of nettle as a metaphor, and that my life to this point has had quite a few knocks and some stings, and the pain that you feel if you get stung by a nettle accidentally when you're just brushing through them and you're totally not expecting it does take your breath away sometimes, and you do say ouch or worse. And kids do cry if they fall off their bike and get stung. But for me now, I embrace those stings. I look at any obstacle in my pathway as a opportunity to grow.
A learning experience.
A learning experience. And I also have learnt so much from the nettle, in as much as I am careful how I use my words, because like the nettle can harm, and it can also heal. And it's like a two-edged sword. And our words are the same. Our words can harm or heal. And over this period of learning about nettles, I've got deeper and deeper into becoming a creative force of nature. And something happened along the way whereby my son approached me and said, "Mum, could you please trial this website for me, this program that I've developed?" And I said, "Yes, of course, son, what is it?" And he said to me back in October, "I've created an app for gratitude journaling." And I thought, well, that's right up my street. That's amazing. I wonder where all that came from, because it was a bit like my son was working from home, because post-COVID he was still working from home at that time. And his home was much like your office here, in the other room. It was just full of screens and coding, and he was coding and creating. And I looked at his gratitude journaling app. It's called saythanks.ai. And it gave me a prompt each day, and I would think about the prompt and then respond. And then it would respond back saying, you're on the right path, or think about it from this aspect or that angle. And over the last 6 months, it's rewired my whole brain. I'm not saying it's done yet, but it's rewiring my whole brain to remove all the negativity from my past, all that harmful, toxic stuff that maybe I'd stored and revisited from time to time. I don't want to do that anymore. So I want to just be uplifted by the nettle, and I want to just stay on the positive side of life. And for every obstacle that comes my way, I'm just going to be looking at the positives and take everything as a learning opportunity, and so that I can move forward and teach people what I'm learning myself.
So this is amazing stuff. You've taken nettles and you've taken affirmations and you've healed yourself, or you're healing yourself with them. And this is nature, right?
This is nature, right?
This
Absolutely.
is about as nature as it comes.
So the other aspect of this is, whilst I was researching nettles as a fibre, I was being inundated with nettles for the health benefits that I could be rewarded with by embracing nutritional nettles in my life and in my diet. So not only am I weaving with them to make clothing now, I'm also creating teas, chopping them up and putting them in my stews, using them in all sorts of ways, making nettle balm, I'm doing all sorts of things with them now. And the nutritional benefits are just vast. And I realised, although my website, Nettle Revolution, was created to be a showcase for my scarves, to sell scarves, and I have been selling nettle scarves, I wanted to add in there all the extra information to help improve people's lives in a physical well-being kind of way.
Amazing. And tell us about Theopathetus and is it Small Business Sunday?
So along the way, I'm looking for ways to grow and expand. And years ago, when I had my chickens, I came across Theopathetus' Small Business Sunday, and every Sunday I would write my little Twitter text and pitch to him with about chickens. I would make it humorous, I would make it sad, I would make it any which way to try and appeal to him. I did it for years, and I didn't hear back from him, but I tried. And so the first time I did that, well, it occurred to me I could start again with the nettles. And the first time I did it, the following day I get a message from Theopathetus that I'm a winner. I was like, I just couldn't believe it.
This is with Nettle Revolution?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I messaged him on Twitter, because you can pitch to him on Sundays between a certain period of time, and then on the Monday he picks, it was 3 winners back in those days. It's more now because he's expanded to Instagram and LinkedIn, but it was just Twitter then, which is now X. And 8 o'clock he reveals the winners. So when you become a winner, it's less than 1% of people that have actually submitted a pitch to him, so it's a big deal. And I had said that I'm now creating scarves from stinging nettles, and my little tagline that I believe won it for me was the bit where I do say I take the sting out of the nettles, because I think it was punchy enough to get his attention. So what that meant was I get to go and meet him, receive an award, and each year now we have a big celebration which is held. I've been to 2 now. I won 2 years ago. It was Birmingham at the ICC, and he brings in wonderful speakers. So last year was Stacey Solomon, and this year, and others, and this year, Maxine Laceby. She's been amazing mentor to me. Maxine particularly came on Zoom and helped me with promoting ways of promoting my nettle balm, because I wanted to scale up, because at the time Theo said at this event, how are you going to scale up your business? And I knew I couldn't scale up by weaving scarves. It's not fast enough. So I decided to make nettle balm, and the wonderful Maxine Laceby was one of his keynote speakers of the day, and she was humble enough to spend time mentoring me on Zoom. And that was a wonderful experience. Maxine Laceby owns Absolute Collagen. It's huge.
I've met her actually.
Wonderful.
I believe, yeah.
She's just
I
become
met
a
her
grandma.
At a conference last year.
She's lovely. So we are connected on socials. In the meantime, I met a GP down in Marazion, which has taken me on a little bit of a trajectory away from the nettle balm, because we started looking at ways of using Nettle Revolution to help heal people and prevent them from needing to go to the doctor's surgery because it's so hard to get appointments at the moment. So the lady, Helen Angel, that I met, she's a current GP.
So we're planning to have Helen on the show at some stage.
Wonderful.
Solve is an SEO and web design agency that builds high quality, sustainable websites and strategies to help businesses grow online. They're also B Corp, meaning they're a business for good, making a positive impact while driving real results. As a special offer for our listeners, Solve is offering a free website audit and consultation. Just mention Searching for a Greener Room to claim yours. So yeah, we're hoping to get Helen on the show at some stage, and this actually leads us nicely into your the evidence that you've brought along with you this time. So we've asked you to bring along 5 bits of evidence, and for a bit of fun, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a minute to talk about each one, if you can last that long. Alex over there has got a dinner bell, and he's going to be timing. So at a minute, he's going to ring the dinner bell. So the first one. This is going back to Helen. Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones. It's a Netflix film by Dan Buettner. Is that how you say it?
Buettner.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, so I was busy with Nettle Revolution, building it up, and taking myself off for walks because that's when I can do my thinking. And I kept bumping into a woman on the beach, and one particular time talking to her, and she said, oh, there's a lady you need to meet called Dr. Helen Angel. She's very much aligned with what you're telling me. You may have, be able to do something together. And so I went to meet Helen, and yes, we hit it off, and we are setting up the Golden Zones, which is an even greater project than the Blue Zones, because we're creating it here in Cornwall, and we are the Golden Ladies. And it's been established on the Golden Mile.
Go on, carry on for a minute.
The Golden Mile in Marazion was initially known for it's seaweed, and the farmers used to collect it to put on their fields as a way of fertilising it and making Cornwall much more fertile and sustainable.
So what actually is the Golden Zone?
So what we want to do is help people stay well, become fitter and live longer by becoming aware of what they're eating and eating better.
And that's based on the Blue Zone?
It is.
Excellent. Okay, so the next one, you've got 1 minute to talk about The Nettle Dress, which is a film by Dylan Howitt.
And Alan Brown. So Alan Brown is the creator of The Nettle Dress, and he's done a fabulous... he's created a fabulous film which is all about the natural fibre of nettles and how you can take it straight from the land, process it with your own hands, and turn it into a beautiful soft fabric that he then cut and created a dress for his now beautiful daughter. And she's wearing it in the film, and he just tells the whole story of why he did it. And it's just inspirational. It's changing. It's changing the way we see nettles and the future of the planet. It's so powerful.
I actually watched the trailer last night, and it looks like a beautiful film.
It's a beautiful film.
Look forward to seeing that. So you now have 1 minute to talk about 101 Uses for Stinging Nettles by Pierce Warren.
Oh, I've got that one here. So in this little book, it talks about the benefits of using nettles in your diet. So, for instance, they help with eczema. They produce shinier hair, beautiful skin, help with sore throats, sore mouths, gout. There's recipes in this book about nettle pies, how to make cream nettle. So my grandma used to make a pudding called rennet. Is it what it's called? Rennet. Anyway, it was a lovely milky pudding, and she used to use a rennet in this pudding, and this book tells you that you can use nettles instead of the rennet that she used to use.
There you go. Wonderful. Just so interestingly, interested in the eczema thing. Is that a balm that you put on the eczema, or is that a drink that you...
Both. So obviously, if you have any conditions, it's good to work from the inside and to also apply on the outside. So sometimes people are applying lots of lotions and potions to the skin, but actually they're not thinking about the stories that they're telling themselves. And if they're living in a kind of negative world, that's producing a biochemistry in your system. So you're not going to be getting better until you change the thoughts that you're...
So you're talking about the thoughts that you're having, plus what you're putting into your body, plus what you're putting outside your body.
That's the way to live a long life.
That makes absolute sense, doesn't it? That makes absolute sense. The next one, you've got a minute to talk about. Nettle... Now, this is a type of nettle, I understand. Nettle Urtica dioica.
Did I Urtica dioica.
Urtica dioica.
Dioica.
Dioica by Amanda Klenner.
So yes, that's that book. So Urtica dioica is the Latin name for nettle. There are actually other nettles that grow in different places of the world, but our British version is the Urtica dioica, and it means two houses, and it means fire, because when you get stung it burns, and you need two plants. You need a male and a female to cross-pollinate to produce. And in her book, she employs other authors, and there's people in there talking about the use, so how to make shampoos, soaps, food from nettles. I love that book. It's very useful.
And these are things that anyone can do.
Anyone can do it. Just follow a recipe like you would, make an apple pie. You can actually download things from the internet and
there we go.
create.
Wonderful. So your fifth book is A Natural History of Nettles by Keith G.R. Wheeler.
Well, this was a book that I used to get a lot of information from for my dissertation, and interesting information in that book, the history of nettles, going back 5,000 years. It was found in tombs. People had been embalmed using nettles, and it was highly prized, so it was actually brought in 6,000 miles in some cases to dress the person who'd passed away. Soldiers would urticate themselves during war periods, which meant taking off their shirt and beating themselves with the nettles to stimulate their circulation, because they may have been standing around for long periods in very cold weather, so it would heat up their body and stimulate them and get the blood flowing, and they may have had cramps in their feet, or they couldn't get their feet warm, so it would help warm their bodies up.
Wow. That's incredible. So that's 5 books or five bits of media there that are very worth having a look at. Now we're going to go through your top tips, and once again you have 1 minute to talk about drinking a daily nettle infusion.
Yeah, let's all try and get 3 cups of nettles into our system each day. To help purify our blood, to help rid ourselves of allergies, to feel more alive, to boost your immune system, to support your kidneys and liver, to detox. We're producing negative thoughts 90% of the time, and that produces toxins in our body. Nettles helps flush it through. It will help you go to the bathroom more regularly, because it's flushing those waste materials out of your system.
Perfect timing.
Practicing this, aren't I?
Yeah. Just before we go any further, tell us how we make a cup of nettle tea.
So go pick your nettles from a nice clean patch where no dogs have been or car pollutions. I take the top 4 inches of a plant. So here's an example You know, you just need the top two layers of leaves. Pop them in a mug or a teapot or a jug. Put your hot water on top. Wait at least 20 minutes for some of the nutrition to come filter through from the plant, and you can then top it up with more hot water or drink it as it is. You can add rosemary, mint, sage. You can flavour it with chamomile. You can flavour it however you like, as long as you drink it. It's really good, healthy, natural, free medicine, and I advise it.
Every day?
Every day.
So, eat nettles in season. Go.
Eat nettles in season. So they're in season a lot of the year. So they're growing now. They're low to the ground now. Start picking them.
So what is the season?
Nettles start growing about March time. You see them springing up. In fact, because we're a mild climate here in Cornwall, they don't actually stop.
Okay.
But they'll start springing up noticeably in March. And, they're probably a foot high at the moment, April time. And then they'll grow to 6 foot, 5 or 6 foot, depending on shade and light. The opportunity, they'll grow, 5 or 6 foot. And you can carry on picking the tops off them right through to the summer. But once they start producing little necklaces, they kind of, the flowers hang down from the leaves, then you can stop picking them then. I heard it's not true, but I wouldn't like to say for sure that this is when the plant may change and become a little intolerant to some people, creating some I can't remember the name of the crystals that are formed in the body. Yeah, but at that point, the seeds are forming, and I collect the seeds, and then I keep the seeds all winter. 1 spoonful, 2 spoonfuls of seeds on your breakfast cereal in the morning or in a smoothie are like a caffeine lift, full of nutrients and another boost for your immune system during winter.
Amazing.
And the roots are very important to use, so you can use all the plant. The roots are very useful, especially to men, to support the prostate. So you would wash the roots and then chop them up and put them into vodka, let them sit there for a few weeks, and then you can take a little bit of that liquid, add it to water and have it as a tincture to help support your body.
Amazing. So the next one is choose natural fibres.
I try hard to choose natural fibres. There are some shops I would never shop at. And I'm wearing this jacket because it is bought recently from, I had a little break. We took my grandson, he had a little op, and we took him away to recuperate. We stayed in Exmouth, and I walked to Budley Salterton one afternoon because I needed some time out on my own. And I saw a shop which was, time around again, or second time around again. And I saw this jacket and I thought, oh, that looks like a jacket I could wear, for interviews.
For smart, yeah.
and it has a Jaeger label in it.
Okay.
So I asked AI to identify the period of this vintage jacket, and it said 1980s. So it's quite an old jacket, and it's pure wool.
Amazing. So while we're there, we spoke earlier about your scarves, and you said that you use a mix of nettle and linen. I didn't know what linen is. Tell us what linen is.
So linen comes from linseed. It grows like flax and nettles, and it's a beautiful cloth. It makes a beautiful cloth, and it's well known for being produced in Ireland. It's a very strong material. A lot of people are put off wearing it because it creases quite a lot. But these days, which isn't a great thing, but they do mix synthetic fibres with it to make it you know.
But when you weave pure linen in with nettles, it makes a super strong and soft material.
I don't tend to weave with just nettles, because when you put your fibre onto a loom, you put it under pressure. There's a tension that you have to create to get the cloth to stabilise as you're weaving, and I find it breaks a lot because my yarn is hand spun, and because it's not done by machine, it has imperfections, weak places, and it regularly snaps. So I buy dead stock linen. Do you want to know what dead stock is?
Absolutely.
So because I work in sustainability, and I'm a waste not, want not kind of girl, I hate waste. So when mills close around the world, and in England we've lost a lot of
almost all of them
mills.
Yeah.
There is a chap in Manchester who will go and collect the dead stock. So sometimes the place closed down, they're waiting for developers to come in to decide what the building's going to become, and these cones of linen can be sitting on machines for a number of years and get dusty and dirty. Then they can't be sold. So kind of they would end up in landfill if there wasn't somebody like me that would doesn't mind buying them in that state, and I use them.
Amazing.
In my work.
Amazing. So this one's we've already sort of gone into, which is practiced outdoor gratitude.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your son's app and how you use gratitude, but tell us about practicing outdoor gratitude.
I did a workshop on Friday, as it happens, and it was about sensing nature. So we were in Tahiti, and we walked in nature, had a good old close look at all the beautiful shapes, colours, scents, sights, and we collected things, and then we came back and we made tusi mousses from what we collected.
I remember you telling me about tusi mousses the other day. Tell us what a tusi moussie is.
It's a posy.
Uh-huh.
And the mousy bit, the tusi bit's posy, and the mousy bit is back in the plague. They used to wrap moss around the bottom of the stems to keep them moist, to give the posy a little bit more longevity. During the plague, ladies used to pick roses, honeysuckle and lavender from the gardens, and then walk through the unsanitated. Is it unsanitated? Is unsanitated a word?
It
Streets,
is now.
streets with these posies under their nose. Later became nosegays, because they gave a heavenly scent to the nose while they were walking along. Queen Victoria reinvented them almost 200 years later. She created... She gave flowers names, meaning. So we have roses are indicative of love, and maybe a lily is more representative of grief, and flowers all had meaning. And young ladies back in the day would be given a posy from a gentleman, and she'd be able to go home, get out her book of meanings for flowers, and look to see whether he had an intention just to go for a walk with her, or whether he was proposing marriage.
Bring that one back.
And then I decided to reinvent them in a sustainable way almost 200 years later again, and looking at nature from a sustainable way, and seeing how we can create beautiful things from hedgerows, things that have died like dried campion, things that have gone to seed, but also adding in beautiful herbs from gardens like lavender and rosemary and sage and scented elements.
And then the last one here you've got is share the nettle story with someone you love.
So I just want to get out there and talk to people about nettles now, and spread the word of they're free, and don't spray them with pesticides. You're killing a habitat, you're destroying nature. You're actually putting a dampener on a food that is so beneficial to your health. So make your tea, chop them up and use them like a spinach, chop them up and add them to other vegetables, just saute them and just add them into smoothies and just take them however you can, because they are there. They also say that they have a sting. It's a thought, it's just a myth, because who knows, but they believe that the sting is to prevent animals from eating them, so that they are left for us, because they are so beneficial and nourishing for us human people.
Brilliant. Well, that's a lovely way to bring that to an end. And we've just got one more question for you, which is, what can people do today to make a better tomorrow and help us find a greener room?
Well, I would say what I said earlier. Let the force of nature shape you into a force of nature. Let's all look at nature as a gift and appreciate it for what it is. I did a project at university called Motonai, which is a Japanese word for do not waste what nature has provided. And they also say in Japanese, give gratitude to nature.
Amazing. How can people get hold of you?
Have a website called Nettle Revolution, funny enough. Have an Instagram account, Jane Gray Nettle Weaver. I'm on Facebook. They can phone me any which way. I'm here to be of service. I want to share with the world the benefits of using nettles.
Jane, thank you so much. I could chat to you all day. Thank you so much for coming in today, and so lovely to see you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of Searching for a Greener Room. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you think, who you'd like to hear from, any topics you want us to cover. Drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.